What's going on YouTube? Clover here, back with another Scarlet Violet video, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Series 2 meta as it is right now. Now again, it's very early, but there's some interesting trends that I do want to make note of and what could happen moving forward. And to do that, we have some nice references. We have the Nino Pokebros tournament that just happened yesterday. Very interesting tournament, very big tournament, almost 500 people. I'm sorry, 400 people. I think it was like 396. That's a very large tournament. So, you know, we're going to use that as some reference. And then there was another one before it, which was the Beanie Brawl. Again, this is about, I think it was like almost 200, like 100 plus. So more good data. All right. And the idea is we're going to be using these two tournaments and just making some notes on some things that we've been noticing in terms of like where Series 2 is at currently and where it could go moving forward. All right. So that's pretty much the gist of it. All right. And then from there, I'll just give my thoughts on like how things should be played, and you know, like maybe some tweaks here and there, and maybe some interesting tech options like certain Pokemon could have that you know you might be able to make use of, right? Given the current format and the way it is right now with the meta, right? So without further ado, let's go ahead and start with our first topic. All right. So the first thing I want to do is to make note of a certain Pokemon that was pretty prevalent in the beginning of Series 1, but then dropped off completely. And that is Arcanine. Welcome back to the dog. I mean, it's been a hot minute since we've seen Arcanine relevant in the meta, right? But if you look here in the Beanie Brawl, you can kind of see it like almost on the rise again. Like there was an Arcanine on the winning team. Then there was Arcanine in 7th place here from Kanoji, right? And then if you scroll down a little bit, I know these aren't like top cutters, but you can still see some Arcanine right here. Here's one down here at 29th. But then, right? Oh, and here's another one in 12th place. But then when you get into the Nino Tour, which was the tournament after the Beanie Brawl, look at this. Oh my lord, Arcanine everywhere. Like, first of all, in the top 3. Okay, then you just scroll down here, and then basically, look at this. There's just so much Arcanine, and they're all in, like, not only in the top cut teams, but even teams that just missed out on top cut. Look at this. Like, welcome back indeed. Like, and the question now is, like, well, why? Why did Arcanine die out, and now why is it coming back? Well, the reason why in the first place is for a few things. One, these two homies were a problem. All right, the Annihilape and King Gambit, right? Because they both have Defiance stuff, right? And then also like the clear amulet item, right? So just for the sake of it, let me just put it here, even though this is not one of the common items on it. But yeah, these were like 3 main reasons: like Defiant Pokemon, clear amulet stuff. And then a lot of the meta also relied on special attackers like Hydreigon and Gholdengo, and then Intimidate doesn't really do anything to them. So because of that, Arcanine pretty much went extinct, all right, and wasn't really used much, right? And then even in San Diego, you almost couldn't find it. But now all of a sudden, it's just popping up like crazy and like wildfire. And now the question is, well, what's making it coming back? I'll tell you what's making it coming back. The Paradox Pokemon is what's making it coming back, right? So you got this guy. Oops, I spelled it wrong. Of course, the big dog, Roaring Moon, and then you got basically, you know, number 2, Fluttermane, right? Well, remember, you might say, well, why can't you just slap on a clear amulet on the Roaring Moon, and then the Arcanine is a problem? Y'all doing that? I don't know anybody else that's doing that. I mean, you can check all these tournament results. I couldn't find a single clear amulet Roaring Moon. Well, why? Because of this ability, Protosynthesis, right? Because with Protosynthesis, you're either going to be using this item, the booster energy, to get the bonus either in the speed or the special attack, which means there's no room for a clear amulet, all right? Or you're running stuff like either Choice Band or a Life Orb, you know, tech option here, right? A little bit more aggressive with like Dragon Dance, for example. So either way, whatever the set you're running on Roaring Moon, it doesn't include clear amulet. So Arcanine says, well, I'm just going to come in and drop all this attack because there's no way I'm going to let you come in with 139 base attack and start smacking me, right? So there was some pretty good benefit there in using Arcanine. And then the other thing was the Fluttermane, right? Because, you know, Fluttermane is doing so much damage, you know, base 135 special attack, all right? Well, if you have the Arcanine, let me just bring it up here, and let me just remove these two. Well, what are like the common moves that Arcanine is really going for? I typed in Flare Blitz, but I wanted to like bring in the Arcanine here. So you got Flare Blitz. All right, and not only that, you got Snarl and you got Will-O-Wisp, right? These are pretty standard moves that you would run on like the supportive Arcanine stuff. You can Snarl the special attackers like a Fluttermane, right? And even like Gholdengo doesn't want to be taking a Snarl, doesn't want to be taking a Flare Blitz either. and then you can intimidate the Roaring Moon, and you can click Will-O-Wisp on the Roaring Moon, right? So Arcanine is actually really nice against the the top two, or at least the quote on paper the top two Paradox Pokemon. So for that reason, the Arcanine seems like a staple, right? And it makes a lot of sense. Like, look at this, and then it just makes a lot of sense. Like, you need the damage mitigation and stuff like this. Anytime you have like a power creep, where you have like even a restricted format, you need some kind of damage mitigation. You can't just have stuff like Zacian and Calyrex click Behemoth Blade and click Astral Barrage, Glacial Lance, and just sweep the game like turn one. You need something to like mitigate some of that damage, so that way you can actually play this game called Pokemon, right? And Arcanine is filling in that role, that Incineroar used to do in Sword and Shield. So very nice to see the dog come back. I like it a lot. I am definitely welcoming it. And again, it's going to be used a lot on teams, just because you have that Intimidate option, right? So welcome back, Arcanine. Let's keep on going and see what else we can note here. All right, the second thing I also want to know from both of these tours is the drop in Dondozo usage. Like, remember how dominant it was in Series 1 and stuff like that, and then in San Diego it was somewhat there a little bit, right? But now look at it. Now that you got these Paradox Pokemon, where are the Dondozos? All right, I don't see any in Top Cut. Okay, and do I see? This is the Beanie Brawl tour, by the way. Anything here? Nope. Yeah, so nothing here. I'm gonna scroll even further down. Like, can I find one? Okay, I found one. Durans. Oh, my guy Durans. Yo, Jonathan, you use Dondozo? Come on, yo, what's up? All right, so yeah, one. Okay, that's one. Now, if you go into the Nino tour, okay, you got one in Top Cut, right, from Lexicon, of course. Then from there, if you scroll down, you got another one here at 17. And then if I go a little bit more down, I find another one in 29th, right? And then is there another one in Top Cut? Okay, one almost did it. So 4 more Dondozos in top 34, right? So, that's very different than what we're used to seeing from Dondozo from Series 1, right? You would definitely find more than 4 Dondozos in top 34, right? At least like double or triple that, right? And then the reason is, and now we have to ask, well, why? Well, what made Dondozo decline? Well, the fluttermane is one reason, right? Because again, if we take a look at fluttermane, what type are you? You are a fairy type, right? So that means the Dondozo, if it wants to go for a Terra Dragon order up stuff, it can't, because one, you're going to take super effective damage from the fluttermane, and two, you can't click order up because you're a fairy type, and fairy types don't take any damage from dragon type moves. And then 3, another thing is both Dondozo and Tatsugiri are weak to fairies, but not only that, look at the special defense of Dondozo. It's only base 65. That's going against 135 special attack with an energy booster, right? And then it's probably going to be 252, 252 most times, right? And then I don't care if you are +2 with the Omni Boost, that you're still taking a big chunk of damage, all right? And then for something that can't really hit the fluttermane, this thing is dropping in like 2 turns, so you have to be careful against fluttermane stuff. So that's one reason why Dondozo has dropped. And then, if you also consider the Arcanines are also coming in, so they're able to intimidate the Dondozo as well. So now that Arcanine's back in the meta, now your +2s are down to like +1s, and then you can just cycle them out, cycle back in. Kind of like how we saw in the finals of the San Diego tour, where you just saw cycling of the Tauros Intimidate, right? And I think it's more or less the same thing here. And I don't see any Dondozos running Clear Amulet, and I don't think they're gonna run that item anytime soon. So there's that. All right, and then you have Roaring Moon. You're like, Roaring Moon can take some of these Dondozo stuff, right? Because it's very bulky. Okay, now maybe not in the defensive side, but you have this move called Breaking Swipe, right? Because Breaking Swipe, you can neuter some of that damage, and it's also super effective, right? And you're fast too. So Breaking Swipe can also deal with Dondozo a little bit, which is always really, really nice. Anytime you can neuter a Dondozo and just not make it do a lot of damage. And then a lot of them are also opting for like, just to like counter some of this stuff, they're opting for the speed Tatsugiri, because the only way to like fight this stuff is you have to outspeed these Pokemon, right? Because they're both very fast. So that's why you might see more speed Tatsugiris, just to like try and outspeed these threats and maybe click some kind of move that can hit them, all right? But that's the idea there. But as of right now, like Dondozo is still pretty good. Like, don't get me wrong, I think it's still pretty good, but it's not as good, right? Because of the Paradox stuff. And we expected this, right? So is it unplayable? No, I think it's still very good. Is it S tier? No, I think it drops. I would probably rank it like maybe a high B tier as of this moment, right? So just figure that out. And then if you also consider like there's other checks to Dondozo on these teams, right? Like, well, this is the next topic. Of course, we're gonna get into it, but you know, you still have Amoongus running around. So we'll talk about that next. So yeah, but again, Dondozo on the decline. All right, so as we just said, now again with the Amoongus, right? You might say, well, there's Brute Bonnet now. Well, why can't people use Brute Bonnet? Well, you know, Brute Bonnet. If you compare Brute Bonnet with Amoongus, first of all, let me just show you. Like again, Beanie Brawl Tour, a lot of Amoongus, right? Look at this, a ton. There's one Brute Bonnet at number 9 from Conkeldurr. All right, and then if I keep going down, it's just like all Amoongus. There's no other Brute Bonnet. Okay, one more in 27. Okay, so within the top 32, you know, you had Brute Bonnet, pretty much. Just 2 teams. Okay, 3. I found another. All right, but look at all the Amoongus. There's like 20 of them. Then if you go into the Nino Tour, whoo, look at this. Top team had Amoongus. Then at 5, you know, with Mondo VGC, you had another Amoongus. Then if you keep going down, all right, you start seeing a lot more Amoongus, right? And you don't see any single Brute Bonnet, right? I can't even find one yet, all right? And all right, finally, I got one at 38th. Okay, cool. But then everything before that, how many Amoonguses did you see? You saw like at least 15, 20 Amoonguses. So the question is, well, you know, I thought Brute Bonnet was supposed to be like the better version. I thought it had better stats. Why are people still using Amoongus as opposed to trying to use Brute Bonnet? Well, there's a couple reasons. One, this dark typing is not as good, you know, in terms of like trying to take hits, right? Because this dark typing makes you weak to fluttermane, okay? You know, if fluttermane clicks one Moonblast, and if it's like energy boosted or if it's specs or life orb or anything like that, I don't think this Brute Bonnet is gonna like that at all. That's one thing. 2, the other thing is like the fighting damage, right? Think about what else is doing like a lot. What else is fighting that's doing a lot of damage? Well, take a look. There's something called Iron Hands, right? And what do Iron Hands Pokemon have? 2 common moves. They have Drain Punch and Close Combat. I don't think this Brute Bonnet is going to be wanting to take it. Doesn't want to take any of those 2. So, you know, there's not so much great use there. Whereas if you do that to Amoongus, you resist that stuff, right? You're not taking fluttermane damage that much, and you're not taking fighting damage that much. So that's great. That's already an advantage that Amoongus has over the Brute Bonnet, okay? And then from there, if you consider like Regenerator versus like the Protosynthesis stuff, the thing is, like, if you want Protosynthesis, you're probably going to be relying more on like the fluttermane and the roaring moon stuff versus like, you know, trying to put the energy booster on the Brute Bonnet, right? Because yes, I understand you do a lot more damage, and I think this is a pretty good offensive threat in terms of like grass typing, but I expect this to be seen more on Tailwind teams, right? Because if you just max speed this 107 at Tailwind, that outspeeds Dragapult, right? So I think there's a good benefit there. But in terms of like the Amoongus role, like that's not Amoongus's job, right? Amoongus's job is to support, redirect, and put things to sleep. Brute Bonnet can do some of that, right? With Rage Powder and Spore, okay? But you kind of want this thing doing damage, right? Because base 127 attack is actually pretty good, okay? And yes, I understand you have more bulk, but your typing is worse, and your ability is technically worse because Regenerator, if you're able to pivot out and in, you're able to get more HP back. That's good recovery. You can't do that with Brute Bonnet. Once you lose all that HP, it's gone. All right, so there's the idea there. And in Trick Room, the Amoongus functions better, right? Because with Trick Room, you know, 0 speed, you're faster than a lot of those base 50 speed mons, like a Brute Bonnet, right? You know, 55 is, you know, it's slow, but it's not like super slow, right? If anything, in max speed, just does really well in Tailwind, whereas Amoongus doesn't really care about Tailwind teams. You're just meant there to redirect, support things. All right, and that's the main idea. So Amoongus has a lot going for it right now, and Brute Bonnet, you know, in terms of the Amoongus role, not so much, right? It can do a little bit, but not so much. So we're appreciating the Amoongus more as opposed to the Brute Bonnet. It just fits a lot of these team compositions a little bit more, right? So, you know, if I had to like just pick a team here, I'll pick this one because this was also the one that won the Beanie Brawl, right? If I recall. Yeah. See. All right. So let's just look at this one, right? So you got Roaring Moon here. With Acrobatics, Throw Chop, Tailwind, and then you have the Iron Hand stuff with a Trick Room setter, and then Arcanine, Gholdengo, right? Fire, Steel type. Okay, cool. So the idea with the Amoongus here, look, you're able to also function in Trick Room, right? Because, you know, you're slower, you set up that Trick Room, and then you just click spores, and then things falls to sleep, right? And you're also able to redirect, set up Tailwind, for your Roaring Moon, and even if they kill your Amoongus, you can get a free switch into something else that can utilize the Tailwind, like your own Gholdengo, for example, right? You're also able to redirect and take hits and help the Frigoraph set up Trick Room, right? So you can either set up Tailwind, Trick Room, just keep your allies safe, and then even like Amoongus Iron Hands, redirect stuff while Iron Hands just clicks Drain Punch or Wild Charge, and just things die. So good value here from the Amoongus. You want a support Pokemon here. You already have like big hitters, right? You got Roaring Moon, you got Iron Hands, you have Gholdengo, okay? These are your big damage mons. You need support mons to go along with the Frigoraph, which is also a damage dealer. And the Amoongus is able to do that just fine. So, the Mushroom is back and it's in full swing, and it's better than ever. All right, keep on going. The other thing I also want to note is the weather war, right, between like rain and sun. So actually right now you would think Torkoal would rise because, there's a lot of Protosynthesis mons that want to use the sun. But it's actually the rain teams that are still more than the sun teams, right? If I look at the Beanie Ball Tour first, look at how many rain teams we have, right? So we have one here. There's a second one here, 3, 4, 5, like all the Pelipper squads, okay? It's interesting how they have rain here. And, some of them are not actually like rain team. Like if I had to look at this team, this isn't a rain team. This looks like Pelipper and 5 friends, I should say, right? This is a rain team, right? Because you have Pelipper Palafin and you have a grass type here with a steel type. I would consider that a rain team. Same thing over here. All right. But then, again, here's the one with Salamis. This is Neil. This is where are the Torkoals? How many Torkoals do you see? Let me see. I got one here at 18th, one here at 19th. And then that's pretty much it. Like not even in the top 32. I see 2 Torkoal teams in top 32, right? If I keep going down, I'll find a couple more. Here's another one at 37. Here's another one at 39. But then, like, that's it. There's not a lot of Torkoal. There's a couple, but not much. And then if we go here in the Nino Tour, if I had to move back here, okay, how many Torkoal teams? Let me see. Any Torkoal? Nothing. Where are you? Yeah, all right, fine. I found one Torkoal at 31, right? So I had to fight to find a Torkoal. Okay, and then how many rain teams am I going to see? All right, so let's see. Pelipper 1. Okay, Pelipper 2. Pelipper 3. Pelipper 4. 4 Pelipper teams, right? That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And then if I had to like go a little bit deeper, all right, Angelo Hunter, right? Pelipper 5. All right, and then 6, 7, 8. Like there's so many. Like even these guys, 6-3. 6-3 is pretty good, man. So like Pelipper is still going strong, and then finally another Torkoal. Okay, but other than that, you're not finding that much Torkoal. So clearly the rain teams are winning, despite the fact that Protosynthesis allows you to bring sun, aka the Torkoal, because Torkoal's kind of meh sometimes, right? Because it gets walled by a lot of this stuff, especially with all these rain teams. That's one thing, but like there's so much stuff running around to resist eruption that the Torkoal doesn't just get a lot of value, because the dragon types resist the fire stuff. Fire to the stuff that you have resist fire. There's a lot of flash fire mines like Armor Rouge and Ceruledge, okay? And then you're able to change your type to like not take super effective fire damage, for that example. There's a lot of ground types. The Garchomp stuff was running around. So Torkoal didn't really have that much to do, which is why I kind of fell out of favor. But there is ways to like to utilize it, especially if you have like an Amoongus, Roaring Moon, along with like a fluttermane, right? If you want to bring Torkoal into something like this, I feel like the Torkoal has to be like more supportive than anything than just click eruption, right? I would do something like Heat Wave, Yawn, all right, maybe Body Press, because you can hit the dark types like a Roaring Moon, and then you can even do like Protect or Helping Hand. I think Helping Hand is a lot more beneficial just because you can help your fluttermane do more damage and even your Roaring Moon more damage, right? If the Roaring Moon had something like either the Life Orb and then the fluttermane had like the Energy Booster, for example, now like Helping Hand, Dragon Move, like Dragon Claw, for example, or what's another one? Throat Chop or Crunch, and then fluttermane, something like either Dazzling Gleam or Moonblast. I'll just put Moonblast just for the sake of it. Shadow Ball. Like Helping Hand with like all of these moves with like boosting items, they're gonna hurt. All right, and then Torkoal with like Yawn stuff, you're able to like force switches into making your opponent be out of position, or you can just flat out sleep the opponent's Pokemon if they don't have any kind of switch, so you can kind of pin that slot. So like Torkoal can do stuff, you know, besides just clicking Eruption, right? So, and I think something like this is the way to go with like Yawn and Helping Hand. You can also have access to Clear Smog if you need something for like Dondozo if it ever starts to rise again. So that's another thing you can use the Torkoal for. But yeah, like it just doesn't have it at the moment. I feel like the rain teams are a little bit better because, you know, if you look at the Pelipper stuff, like what is Pelipper doing? I mean, you do get speed control, not only in addition to the weather, right? Torkoal can't give you speed control. So you get Tailwind, all right? In addition, you also get Wide Guard. So Wide Guard, again, really good on the rain teams. You're able to stop the Gholdengo stuff. You stop the heat waves. You stop, you know, basically spread moves in general, especially like Dazzling Gleam, fluttermane. That's one thing. So it's really good in terms of like helping stuff. And then you have like a really, really strong stab move that's consistent. You know, you always have Hurricane. You even have access to Hydro Pump if you want to do that too. These are two hard-hitting moves. And then Torkoal, despite the fact that it also has Heat Wave, you know, just doesn't do as much damage, right? And then the Pelipper just has these like stab boosted attacks and then more accurate attacks, you know, thanks to the rain. But in general, Pelipper just puts more pressure and has a good support set, whereas Torkoal, while it can have a good support set, a lot of its attacks can kind of get walled, so you have to be careful with how you use the Torkoal. But as of right now, as far as like looking at these two tournaments, Rain so far is the clear winner over the Torkoal stuff. All right, so let's keep going. Okay, the other thing I also wanted to talk about with Paradox Pokemon is like the standard cores that you're seeing right now. So if you look at the Beanie Brawl Tour and then even in the Danino Tour, there's a couple of things to note in terms of like what's being used a lot. And it's this core right here with the Arcanine, the Amoongus, and the bundle along with Roaring Moon. So let's put that in Showdown real quick with Roaring Moon starting things off, and then the Arcanine, okay, then the Amoongus, and the ironbundle, right? And the whole idea with this is you have a strong fire, water, grass core, right? So you have Intimidate, you have also Snarl and Will-O-Wisp stuff, then you also have redirection support with the Amoongus, and then the ironbundle, because you're 1 point faster than fluttermane, you always have a speed advantage when you can go for Icy Wind stuff, right? And then Freeze Dry, and then Hydro Pump is also really consistent. And then here's probably just like Protect. And then the Roaring Moon, it really depends on the player. This could be like Energy Booster Acrobatics. This could be a Life Orb set with Dragon Dance. This could be a Tailwind setter with like max speed. It really all depends. But the idea, again, is that you have this 4, right? So if you want to like start team building in Series 2 and you just want something that's like standard and consistent, start with these 4. Roaring Moon, Arcanine, Amoongus, and Ironbundle, right? Because with the Ironbundle, especially with Freeze Dry, you're able to put a lot of pressure on stuff that's weak to ice typing and also the water types that you might see running around, like the rain stuff. So Ironbundle does really well there. And then you're able to get speed control on the opposing fluttermane with the Icy Wind. And then over here, you know, with like Arcanine, you're able to mitigate a lot of opposing Roaring Moon damage or opposing physical types in general. And then the Amoongus just gives you redirection to maybe set up a Roaring Moon Tailwind, or maybe some kind of Trick Room setter that you would put on this kind of core. And you see that a lot, right? So if you look here in terms of like what people have been trying with this core, so you could do something like Garganical and Iron Hands. So these are like another supportive mon and then another sweeper. Again, the Iron Hands is common. Something like this, where you have the Sylveon, even like that's actually a little bit interesting that there was the Sylveon being used from Mr. Penguin. Okay, but here's another one. Here's that same core from from Old Sweepy, which is the same core that won the Beanie Tour, right? You have the Trick Room setter plus the Iron Hands, right? So Farigiraf is one example, and then you have like the Iron Hands, right? So the idea here is you're able to set up Trick Room, you know, help redirect with the Amoongus, set up the Trick Room, and then if they kill the Amoongus, you bring in your Iron Hands and you start dealing a bunch of damage, right? So along with Farigiraf. So that's the concept of this Trick Room tail end portion of the Roaring Moon Arcanine Amoongus core along with Ironbundle. You could also do stuff like, you know, if you don't want to use the Arcanine, you could do something like Armor Rouge, right? So Armor Rouge Amoongus could be a thing, and then you just swap out the Arcanine, for example. But Flash Fire is really good. You're able to, you know, of course, take that fire damage, and then Terra Grass is also pretty good here. just so that you're able to take a little bit more water attacks. But you always have access to Wide Guard, and you have access to Trick Room, right? So you have another Trick Room setter here, but that's Trick. But again, you can also do a bunch of damage with the Armor Roots because you have Armor Cannon, and then you have Expanding Force, right? So that's pretty much it. Like, in terms of like these cores, well, I shouldn't say that's pretty much it. Like, these are like the two major ones, I would say. And then from there, if you just look at some other stuff, you have fluttermane still running around. Not as much though, right? Like, if you look, like there's just not too much fluttermane. Like, it's slapped onto some teams, but then you look at it, it's like, okay, I can kind of see that, but like, what are they running in terms of like sets? So here, even like Marcus, like, let's just look here. He has the 4, right? Roaring Moon, Iron Hands, Iron Bundle, Amoongus. And then there's the Arcanine. And then there's just a fluttermane slapped on here, right? Fluttermane, Roaring Moon, they can go together. But this is a spec set, and here's this. Oh, this is Sash. Oh, that's very interesting. I didn't expect that. And then he put the booster energy here. Wow. So if it were me, I would put the booster energy on the Roaring Moon and then the Sash on the Iron Bundle. The Iron Bundle is more, not as bulky. So that was interesting. Okay, I guess I kind of understand it. Maybe this is like for fairy attacks. But, again, the idea is, you can slap on fluttermane onto a lot of these things. But, it just doesn't do as well, currently. Because, the bulk is just not there. It can get one shot by King Gambit Sucker Punch if you have the right EV investment, right? And the same thing with, like, Gholdengo. Because if you look at all the Gholdengo stuff, like, look at this. Look how much Gholdengo there are. Like, what fluttermane wants to come into a matchup where there's Gholdengo and, maybe a strong fire type? You're just not going to do that much damage, right? And, there's still King Gambits running around, so that's even more pressure to have to deal with, right? So you might as well just leave the fluttermane home, which is what a lot of people did. There's that. But as far as like those two cores, Trick Room setter plus like an Iron Hands, and then the big forward Roaring Moon, Arcanine, Amoongus, and Bundle. That's like already your two dominant Series 2 cores. There's other cores, of course, but I feel like those are the two big ones as far as Paradox Pokemon are concerned. All right. So if you want to do some team building, start with these 4. All right. So we'll keep on moving. All right, this is going to be one of my predictions / Clover takes here, and I think Scizor could do really well in a meta like this. I think it could actually rise for a few reasons. One, the Steel Bug typing is actually pretty beneficial here because you're able to hit a lot with stuff like Bullet Punch and Pounce. By the way, I'm not saying like this is the clear all end all Scizor set. I'm just listing a bunch of moves that you can use on Scizor that could do really well. So like, what does Bullet Punch hit? First of all, you can pretty much smash the fluttermane. That's one thing. And you have priority, right? So the fluttermane can't really outspeed you. 2, you can also hit stuff that's weak to Bullet Punch, basically other fairies or like the Garganacl. And then this is why the Garganacls are being forced to Terra type into something that's not rock. So this way they don't have to also go smack to the Bullet Punch, right? The Pounce, the bug typing is also really good right now because you have pretty much quite a bit of dark types running around, and then Pounce also gives you speed control, which is also pretty beneficial. So you can hit the Roaring Moon for super effective damage, right? Because you're a bug type, and then other dark types that are running around also don't want to be taking that as well. And then close combat Scizor, again, you can also hit the steel types, other steel types, like a King Gambit doesn't want to take close combat. Just like not the Fluttermane, the Roaring Moon again also doesn't want to take a close combat. And then back Scalipers that are still relevant and running around. Like, I think there's 3 back Scalipers here in the top cut. Back Scalipers don't want to be taking close combats, right? So there's some good benefit here to running the Scizor, and I think it has some pretty good uses, especially after like Swords Dance, where like everything here is just going to be hitting super hard. So there's some merit to Scizor, and I think it can definitely rise, especially on like rain teams, right? So for example, this kind of team with like Pelipper, I think Scizor can do really well just because the Pelipper can take away the main weakness, which is fire. And that's what we did in Series 1, right? We put Scizor on a rain team, and it did really well because you couldn't really remove it, and I was going for priority moves, and nothing was really removing the Scizor. So I think it could rise. I think it could do really well. But that's like one of my takes. All right, you let me know what you think on Scizor. Let's talk about the next topic. So I want to go back into like Gholdengo stuff. So like, yes, Gholdengo is still like running around, but like what's interesting is the common set that is being used at the moment. And it turns out it's going to be, if I had to, let me just remove it here. Let me just put Gholdengo. It's going to be this. It's going to be, of course, Make It Rain. it's going to be Shadow Ball, it's going to be Nasty Plot, and it's going to be Protect, right? And then it's actually Life Orb, and this is something that was used like a little bit earlier in Series 1 before like the Choice Spec stuff or the bulkier Citrus Berry leftover stuff took over. But this is something that's been rising, and you know, it's important to know. Like if I take a look at some of these tournaments, let's look at the winner. I think Lunar had a Life Orb set. Yep, it is a Life Orb set. Make a Rain, Shadow Ball, Nasty Plot, Protect. If you look at some others, they're also doing the same thing. Joe, I know, was Specs, so I don't need to click that. Mr. Penguin over here, what were you running? Go again, also a Life Orb Gholdengo set, Make It Rain, Shadow Ball, Nasty Plot, Protect. So there's another set that you see. And it was just like relatively common, right? Because, you know, it's just a little different, right? I'll even click this one. Kikiru, were you running it? All right, this one was a spec set like Joe. Okay, that's fine. Like specs is still good. Like it's still relevant. I think it does quite well. Let's look at Brady's here. This is B Smithy. Yeah, see another Life Orb Gholdengo. So like that's 3 Life Orb Gholdengos like within, you know, top 10 or something like that, right? Brady, where were you? Yeah, you were in 9th. So yeah, 3 Gholdengos in the top cut. So, you know, it's just like, well, what makes it so good? Because Nasty Plot just does so much damage, right? You're able to go for bulkier spreads. And then when you go for a bulkier spread, you know, you're able to take more hits. And then, you know, you're just able to go for harder hitting Make It Rains, especially with the Life Orb, right? So I don't even have to like fully invest into my special attack here, right? Of course, I'm still going to go modest, but I don't need to like fully max this out, right? I can just go like 187 here and then just opt for more bulk like this, like 189, for example, and then just have enough speed, you know, to outspeed like the Dragapult stuff. And then from there, I can just like use my 144 EVs just to like invest in my bulk, right? In some shape or form, like to maybe do an interesting damage calc, right? But for the sake of this, I'll just like try and even out the spreads here just so that you have something. So I'm not saying like this is like the be all and all spread. I'm just giving you an example here. You know, this is meant to be played under Tailwind, but you're bulkier and you know, you hit hard, you have a Life Orb, and you have Nasty Plot stuff. So you're able to take some damage, get off a Nasty Plot, then go for a Make It Rain the next turn, right? So that's the idea. And it's interesting to see the Life Orb Gholdengo set back, even though there's still like a good amount of Specs Gholdengo. But it's nice to see that Life Orb is making a comeback. And I want to see how many Gholdengos are going to be using Life Orb in the next tournament, right? So just being aware of that. So let's keep on moving. All right, the last thing I also want to look at is, and we'll start in the Beanie Brawl here, like the fall of not just Dondozo again, but also Garchomp and Hydreigon, and even Murkrow, right? Where are they? So there's one Murkrow team here, but where are Garchomp and Hydreigon? And I don't see them. I see Dragapult, that's one, but you know, where is Garchomp and Hydreigon? There's one Hydreigon here, there's a Garchomp here. Okay, so there's 1 and 1 within top 25, right? Anywhere else? I feel like there's more Excalibur at this point, but I don't see them. And the reason being is you don't need to use those 2 anymore at the moment. You can just use Roaring Moon. And then Roaring Moon was enough of a dragon, and now you're just going to be supporting and building around the Roaring Moon stuff, right? So that's one thing to know, because Roaring Moon could just one-shot both of them because you're faster than both of them, and you have a dragon move, and then both Garchomp and the Hydreigon, they just drop, right? So, you know, there's no real point to using them now because Roaring Moon is everywhere. So now you need something else to help fight you against Roaring Moon. So that's another reason why they both have dropped. The other reason is another one. The Annihilape has dropped. So Annihilape used to be really common in Series 1, and it's one reason why Intimidate was non-existent. But now if you look here in the Beanie Brawl tour, you know, you don't see that much Annihilape. You see one here, of course, in number 4. But other than that, how much do you see? Another one here in 9. All right, 2 Annihilapes, and if you keep scrolling down, like I'll even go to like top 30. There's just one more here from Jabby, so 3 Annihilapes in the top 30. You'd expect to see a lot more than that. And if we go into the Nino tour, look for Garchomp and Hydreigon and Annihilape. There's one here with Scarlet skill, one Garchomp, but other than that, it's all Roaring Moon and a bunch of Amoongus, a bunch of Arcanines, right, on the same team. Yeah, again, we talked about that core already. But they're just dead, right? And I wouldn't say they're like bad. It's just that there's better options now. So, you know, and the thing with like Annihilate, also Life Orb Mimikyu just rose a lot and put it out of its misery. And Roaring Moon also does so much against Annihilape, especially with the acrobatics set, right? Ooh, energy booster, booster energy, acrobatics will just take out Annihilape completely, right? Because Annihilape's a fighting type and you take super effective damage from flying. And if this Roaring Moon wants to go for Terra Flying, energy boosted, you know, acrobatics, it just drops. I don't know too many mods that want to be taking that. So on that note, that's one thing that you can use against the Annihilapes, right? If you do see it, but you know, if you just look at like the tournament results, I can't find any at all. All right, and for good reason, because Paradox Pokemons are very strong. All right, so just note that. You're right. The Hydreigons, the Garchomps, the Annihilapes, they've all dropped. And then if you also look, where are the mouse holds? I haven't seen a single mouse hold except for this one right here in 3rd place. All right, any other mouse holds? It's all about Amoongus. All right, there's another one in 25th. Okay, anything else? No, I'm already in the top 40, and I've only found 2 mouse hold. There's another one here. All right, 3 in the top 42. But even then, like mouse hold and Annihilape, Garchomp, Hydreigon, they used to be so common. Even the Murkrow stuff. How many Murkrows here? There's one here in top cut. There's another one here at 25, so not terrible. It's still getting up there. Anywhere else? Okay, 3. There's 3 Murkrows in the top 30. Okay, that's not gonna cut it. It has been declining considering where it was in like middle of Series 1, where Murkrow, Gholdengo, Hydreigon, Garchomp stuff were just everywhere. But now you just don't see them because Paradox Pokemon and fluttermane just put them out of their misery, right? So maybe they'll come back in another shape or form. But right now, Series 2 is just not the time for those 4. So leave them in your boxes. All right, and that's pretty much it, right, for now. You know, we're just looking at 2 tournaments just to get like some general consensus, general data. I think Scizor is going to rise a little bit. That's just my take. I also think Volcarona is really good in this format, not the other one. Just because the fire typing is really good against Gholdengo, good against King Gambit. You can resist the fluttermane. You have access to Tailwind. You have access to bug moves, which is also really good into Roaring Moon. So that's another thing that I think could rise is that Volcarona. I'm going to put it on my team. So, you know, be aware of that one. But from here, it's just all about like Roaring Moon, the squads with like the support core with Arcanine, Amoongus, and ironbundle. There's other different ways to build a Roaring Moon. Of course, you might even just use half of that core and build around with 4 other Pokemon. I don't know where Dondozo can go from here. I think maybe, this is all like red Dondozo. Maybe the yellow one can do something, right? Because you can outspeed certain threats. So maybe Dondozo can rise there a little bit. But like Annihilape's dead. Mousehold is dead, at least from here. Meowscarada is still fine, right? I feel like Meowscarada is still going to be a staple just because it has so much use on these teams, whether it's on a rain team, on a balanced team. Meowscarada is really good. But from here, I'm not sure. I'm truly not sure. I think Roaring Moons are still going to be dominant, right? I expect to see more fluttermane eventually, right? But right now, there just hasn't been a whole lot. Maybe Mystical Fire set fluttermane could help give it back some more dominance, right? If I would say. But Iron Hands looks really good. The Trick Room stuff with it is working, I would say. A lot of teams have been doing well with it. So yeah, we'll see if that also continues moving forward. I don't know if Pincurchin will start to see rise. I know there's a couple here in number 7 and in number 19 in the Nino tour. Was there any in the Beanie Roll tour in terms of Pincurchin? There was no Pincurchin here. So maybe it can, but like Pincurchin is kind of like not too great unless you maybe give it a life orb. But even then, it's just, you know, not a huge big source of damage, but you just really need the terrain out of it, right? So there's that. But yeah, we'll be back in another video next time, guys. Hopefully we can recap a few more tournaments like we've been doing throughout the entirety of Scarlet and Violet. But yeah, we'll be back. If you want to do coaching with me, that's a tier 3 sub to the channel. Check the video description, check the comment section. We have the link below. If you want to schedule a call with me, we'll build your Series 2 team. If you're interested in that, we'll hash out the EVs, the IVs, the movesets. And then I show you how to, work with the team. I'll show you how to battle with the team. All of this is done in the Discord call. So if you're interested in that, definitely consider doing a tier 3 subscription. Or if you have a team already, you just want me to fix it up a little bit in terms of like EV spreads and maybe optimization in certain Pokemon that you choose, that's a tier 2 sub to the channel. So yeah, definitely consider looking at that. And again, it's all in the link in the video description and in the comment section. All right, now we'll be back with another video, guys. in the next one. Peace out. Have a good one.